Why I regret retiring early, 5 painful lessons you won't hear at the retirement party. Have you ever had one of those moments where you're sitting on your porch, cup of coffee in hand, the sun just starting to rise, and you think to yourself, this is what I dreamed about for years, so why do I feel a little empty? I remember the first few weeks after I retired. Everyone was congratulating me, telling me how lucky I was. My coworkers threw a lovely little party. There were balloons, cake, even a slideshow. People said things like, "You've earned it," and "Time to relax and enjoy life." And for a while, I believed them. I was excited, relieved, maybe even a little proud of myself. I thought I had finally crossed the finish line. But as the months rolled on, that finish line didn't feel like a victory anymore. It felt more like a dead end. Now don't get me wrong. Retirement isn't a bad thing. For some people, it's the perfect time to travel, spend time with grandkids, pick up hobbies. But here's what they don't talk about at the retirement party: the quiet regrets that creep in when the novelty wears off. The things I wish someone had told me before I made that leap. That's why I want to have this honest conversation with you, because if you're thinking about retiring soon, or if you've already made that decision and feel like something's missing, you are not alone. So today, I want to share 5 painful lessons I learned after retiring early. Not to scare you, but to help you prepare in a way that I didn't. Because the truth is, it's not just about money or freedom, it's about purpose, identity, and how we choose to spend the time we thought we'd been waiting our whole lives for. Let's talk about the first thing that hit me hard, and it didn't take long to feel it: losing my sense of identity. You see, for over 40 years, I woke up with a plan. I had a place to be, people depending on me, and problems to solve. I didn't always love my job, but it gave me a role in the world. I was needed. I was someone. Then one day, I handed in my badge, turned in my laptop, and just like that, it was gone. No more emails. No more meetings. No more responsibilities, sure, but also no more structure. No more reason to get dressed before noon. It's funny how quickly your days start to blur together. Monday feels like Thursday. The weekends don't even feel special anymore. And little by little, I started to feel like I didn't quite matter in the same way. People stop asking you what you do. They start saying things like, "How's retirement treating you?" But they're not really asking about you. They're asking if you're enjoying yourself. And the truth is, I wasn't sure how to answer. I realized I had let my job define me. Without it, I felt adrift. That was painful. It forced me to ask deeper questions I hadn't thought about in years. Who am I without a title? What do I actually want to do with my time? What makes me feel useful? If you haven't retired yet, I urge you, please don't wait until the clock runs out to start answering those questions. Start now. Explore interests outside of work. Build a life that isn't tied to your job title. Because when that title is gone, you'll want something solid to fall back on, not just hobbies, but a sense of purpose. And that brings me to the second regret, something I never expected to miss so much: connection. You think you're going to see everyone after you retire. That your work friends will stay your friends. You picture meeting up for lunch, grabbing coffee, texting back and forth like always. But slowly, the calls slow down. People get busy. And it starts to sink in: you were close because you worked together. You saw each other every day. You bonded over shared deadlines, office gossip, that grumpy boss. But when you're not in that world anymore, the common ground starts to crumble. I started feeling more isolated than I ever imagined. My partner was still working. My kids were grown with their own lives. And while I thought I'd enjoy the quiet, it quickly started feeling like loneliness. Days would go by without real conversation, and I didn't even realize how much I missed being around people until I wasn't. And here's the thing, making new friends at 60 or 70 isn't like it was at 25. There's no built-in social group. You have to put yourself out there in ways that can feel awkward and vulnerable. But trust me, do it anyway. Join a walking group, volunteer, take a class. Don't wait for loneliness to sneak up on you. Build your circle before you need it. Because we all need connection, not just during holidays or birthdays, but on regular Tuesday mornings when the house feels too quiet. Now, as I reflect on those first few years after retirement, I can tell you this: no one warned me about how those two things, losing my identity and feeling disconnected, could weigh so heavily. And they often go hand in hand. When you don't know who you are anymore, and you're not connected to others who remind you of your worth, it's easy to slip into a kind of emotional fog. And most people won't talk about it. They'll smile at your retirement party, raise a glass, and send you off with best wishes. But no one tells you what happens the morning after the celebration, when it's just you, your thoughts, and a very long stretch of empty time. That's why it's so important to talk about this, not just as a warning, but as an invitation. An invitation to retire into something meaningful, not just away from work. To build a life that feeds your soul, not just your free time. And as we keep going, I want to share more of what I learned the hard way. Because the biggest regrets don't come from the decision to retire, they come from what we do, or don't do, once we take that step. And here's where things started to get even more real for me, something I never expected, and honestly, something I would have rolled my eyes at if someone told me this before I retired. I found myself bored. Not the kind of boredom where you don't know what movie to watch or which book to pick up, but a deeper kind of boredom. A restlessness. A feeling like nothing had weight anymore. You work your whole life dreaming of freedom, no more alarm clocks, no more traffic, no more meetings. And then you finally get it. You wake up with a whole day ahead of you to do whatever you want, and you just kind of sit there. You go for a walk. You tinker in the garage. Maybe you watch a little TV, take a nap. And it's fine, for a while. But when every day starts to look the same, even the freedom feels like a trap. Here's the truth no one says out loud: structure is freedom, too. That was one of the most painful lessons I learned, number 3 on my list. I needed something to look forward to. Something to do. I didn't need a packed schedule, but I needed rhythm, a reason to get up and out, to feel like time wasn't just slipping through my fingers. Because when you don't have anything anchoring your day, it's incredibly easy to fall into unhealthy patterns. Sleeping too late, eating out of boredom, spending hours staring at a screen. It creeps up on you before you even notice it. I had to learn how to create structure again, not because I had to, but because I wanted to feel engaged. I started small. A walk at 8 a.m., coffee with a friend once a week, volunteer work at the library on Wednesdays. I even picked up an old interest in woodworking and gave myself little projects to finish each month. It didn't have to be grand or impressive. It just had to give my days some shape. And once I started doing that, the days stopped feeling so empty. They started feeling like mine again. But here's where things took another turn, and this one really caught me off guard. With all this unstructured time and fewer social connections, I started spending more time in my own head. At first, that didn't seem like a bad thing. Some quiet reflection, a little nostalgia, maybe even some daydreaming. But the longer I sat with my thoughts, the more I noticed something creeping in: regret. That brings me to the 4th lesson: regret doesn't always show up in big, dramatic ways. Sometimes, it whispers. It says things like, "Why didn't you travel more when you had the chance?" Or, "Why did you wait so long to call that old friend?" It reminds you of the dreams you put on a shelf because you thought there'd be more time later. And when later finally arrives, you realize you never made a plan for it. You see, when I was working, I always thought retirement would be the time I'd finally write that book, or take that long road trip across the country, or learn Spanish. But once I retired, those things didn't just happen. There was no magic energy boost, no sudden wave of motivation. I had to create it. And because I didn't plan ahead, I found myself sitting there with all the time in the world, and no idea how to fill it meaningfully. That regret hit harder than I expected. And it wasn't just about the things I didn't do, it was also about the people I didn't spend enough time with. I started thinking about how often I prioritized work, or errands, or just being too busy. I thought retirement would be my chance to make up for lost time, but some of that time was already gone. Some people had moved on. Some relationships had faded. And no matter how many hours you suddenly have in a day, you can't always go back and fix that. So if you're still in the planning phase, or even early in your retirement, I can't stress this enough, don't wait to do the things you've always said you wanted to do. Don't assume that free time will automatically turn into fulfilling time. Make a list. Make a plan. Dream a little bigger. Reach out to the people you care about now, not later. And if you've already retired and you're feeling some of this too, I want you to know, regret doesn't mean it's too late. It just means something inside you still wants to grow, to stretch, to live. That's a good thing. That's your spirit talking. Listen to it. Now, one of the biggest regrets I didn't expect to face, one that's not easy to talk about, was how retirement affected my health. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. And I'll be honest, I thought I'd feel better once I stopped working. Less stress, more sleep, more time to take care of myself. But strangely enough, some of my health started to decline after I retired. Not because retirement is unhealthy in itself, but because of what I wasn't doing. I wasn't moving as much. I wasn't as mentally stimulated. I was eating a little more out of boredom, drinking a little more wine in the evenings, skipping walks because, well, there's always tomorrow. But tomorrow became next week, then next month. The routine that had kept me moving, thinking, and engaging was gone. And my body felt it. My energy dropped. My mood shifted. My motivation to stay active took a nosedive. It was subtle at first, but when I looked back after that first year, I could see the difference, clear as day. What helped me crawl out of that slump wasn't a big dramatic lifestyle overhaul. It was something much simpler, taking ownership. Owning the fact that retirement didn't automatically mean a healthier or happier me, that it was still my job to create those things. And once I started being more intentional with how I moved, ate, and rested, things slowly got better. I started treating my health not as an afterthought, but as a project, a commitment. Because the truth is, how you feel physically has everything to do with how you feel emotionally. They go hand in hand, especially after 60. I'll tell you what, getting honest about my health was probably one of the most humbling parts of this whole retirement journey. Not just because I realized how much I'd let things slide, but because it forced me to accept something I hadn't wanted to admit. Just because I had more time didn't mean I was using it wisely. And that leads right into the fifth and final lesson, the one that still stings a little when I think back on it. Retirement isn't the finish line. It's not the end of the road. It's just a new chapter. But no one tells you how easy it is to slip into thinking that your best days are behind you. I don't say that to be dramatic. I say it because I felt it. I'd worked hard, raised a family, paid my dues. And when I finally stepped away from the 9-to-5 grind, there was this subtle, almost invisible shift in how I saw myself. I started telling myself things like, well, I've done enough, or, that's for the younger folks now. I slowly stopped setting goals. I stopped dreaming. I convinced myself that winding down was just part of getting older. But one day, while walking through a bookstore, I overheard a woman, probably in her late 70s, talking about how she'd just signed up for a creative writing class. She was beaming, absolutely glowing with excitement, saying, I figured, why not now? And something about that moment hit me square in the chest. It reminded me that I still could. I still wanted to. I just hadn't given myself permission. That's what I regret the most, that I spent too long thinking retirement meant slowing down instead of starting over. That it meant less instead of different. I wish someone had told me it's not too late to reinvent yourself. That even after 60, 70, or beyond, there are parts of you waiting to be discovered. That the world still has room for your voice, your gifts, your curiosity. And so, little by little, I started shifting how I looked at my days. I gave myself small goals again. Not pressure, purpose. I started mentoring younger folks in my field, just casually, over coffee. I picked up the guitar again after decades of letting it collect dust. I even tried online yoga, which, let's just say, was hilarious at first, but eventually became something I genuinely looked forward to. What changed wasn't just my schedule, it was my mindset. I stopped thinking of retirement as the end of my usefulness and started thinking of it as the beginning of a new kind of freedom. One where I wasn't trying to prove anything or race against the clock, but simply live fully, with intention. So if you're watching this and feeling any of what I felt, whether it's boredom, regret, loneliness, or just a lingering sense that something's missing, I want you to hear me clearly. It is not too late. It's not too late to reconnect with who you are, to rekindle a passion, to make new friends, to get in better shape, to find joy in the small things, or to try something completely out of your comfort zone, just for the fun of it. Retirement doesn't have to be a slow fade. It can be a bold beginning. And yes, I regret retiring early, not because I hated retirement, but because I went into it unprepared. I thought freedom was enough. I didn't realize I'd need meaning, structure, community, health, and purpose just as much as I ever did when I was working. Maybe even more. But the good news is, even if you feel like you've made some of the same mistakes I did, you can start shifting things today. Right now. This minute. You don't need a big plan. Just one small step. One phone call to a friend you've lost touch with. One walk around the block. One journal entry. One afternoon spent exploring an old interest. One choice to make today just a little more intentional than yesterday. That's how you build a life you're excited to wake up to. Not all at once, but with small, meaningful steps that bring you back to yourself. And if any of this resonated with you, if you've been nodding along, maybe wiping away a tear or two, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. What has retirement looked like for you? What have you struggled with? What have you discovered that surprised you? Your voice matters here. You're not alone, and chances are, someone else will read your words and feel seen, maybe for the first time. And if you found this helpful, go ahead and give this video a like. It lets me know that these conversations matter, and it helps us reach more people who need to hear this too. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more honest, uplifting content like this, because we've got so much more to talk about. Remember, retirement doesn't have to be the end of your story. It can be the chapter where you finally start living on your terms, with wisdom, courage, and joy. Here's to living your best life, at any age. You deserve nothing less.